Well, welcome everybody to another segment of Lewis at Large. Yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck, and as always, some smart talk radios in your future. This segment is going to have a little bit of fun. Hey, it's summertime. Let's talk to Pete Trabucco. He's been on this show before. He is a travel specialist, and most of all, he is an amusement park expert. It's always fun when he is on. Thrill seekers looking for the latest, tallest, or longest roller coaster have their work cut out for him. But thanks to Pete's work, fine work indeed, he's going to tell you all about the various roller coasters and some great amusement parks we have from the Atlantic all the way across to the Pacific. He's appeared on over 1,200 radio and TV shows, including this one, and Fox News and MSNBC, Bloomberg TV, CNN, and much, much more. He's also a published author. Got a workout we talked about a while back called America's Top Roller Coasters and Amusement Parks. Pete, how are you, my friend?
Boy, what an intro. I'll give you the money later for that. That was great. Thanks again. I appreciate it.
You got it. I am so impressed. Frankly, if you were a golf pro, I might be more impressed. But the idea that you go around amusement parks and make a living out of it impresses me indeed. First of all, what do you do in your real life?
Well, in real life, I'm an aviation sales guy. So basically, I'm traveling the country selling jet parts and doing aviation. So that gets me to all these different places around the country. And I'm also a pilot, although now I'm a frustrated pilot. So I do a lot of roller coasters to try to, get that feeling, feel the rush. Although it's not on the same level as actually doing a loop-de-loop or an element or a barrel roll in an airplane, it does definitely come quite close at times. And some of these new rides that we'll talk about, and in fact, you've got one massive ride over where you are in Kansas, over at, I think it's Worlds of Fun, Mamba, which is one of the tallest at 200 feet and fastest at 80 miles an hour. That simulates, a few things that you can do in an airplane. So there's a lot of fun out there, and that's one of the things I love to do.
Well, let's talk about it. This is what we see now at the amusement parks are basically like sort of mechanical, entertaining gyroscopes you can ride on. It seems like anymore. They're not the old standard wooden framed roller coaster that just moves up and down and around. What share with our Lewis at Large listeners the role of technology, computer and otherwise, over the last decade or so? How's that really changed them?
Well, technology has definitely changed the industry. Way back when, during the turn of the century, when the renaissance of roller coasters occurred, and we had rides that basically they just put together and see how it worked, and people would come off with broken necks and backs and legs and arms, and it was you need an entourage of medical people to do that, and it would tell you right at your own risk. Nowadays, with technology, they're able to do everything on a computer, get all the graphics together, find out what the G-forces are going to be, how much a person can take and not take, and before it even actually hits the park, they know pretty much how that ride is going to be. Nowadays, these rides are much, much smoother, and thanks to Walt Disney back in 1959, created the first steel roller coaster at the Matterhorn, and you're able to bend the steel, do loop-de-loops, and it's a lot smoother now. So they've come a long way, and these rides, even though they look terrifying, they're very safe. You have about a 1 in 700 million chance of getting into a fatality once you're in the amusement park and one on these rides.
Pete, from what you can tell, is the concept of the roller coaster or the roller coaster family, which I know is very, very big, but is it becoming more and more popular, or are there other rides that maybe are taking the roller coaster's place?
Well, nothing is going to take care of the roller coaster, the lifeblood of any amusement park. And you can go back to 1884 when the first roller coaster by Lamarcus Thompson was created. It's always been about the roller coaster. That's what people go to the parks for. But nowadays, you've got some great rides, simulation rides like Spider-Man over at Universal Studios or The Mummy at the same location. You got the indoor roller coasters like Rock and Roller Coaster over at Disney World, and just crazy stuff where you actually have 3D rides now on the older rides, so that while you're riding a roller coaster, you actually have a 3D, helmet if you want, and glasses and goggles, so you get the full effect. And of course, there's other ways of doing it as well. You've got those that don't even move at all. Store comes to mind, where basically you just in front of a big screen, and you're not doing anything except watching this 360 screen. But it's so realistic; it's almost like flying in a hang glider. So technology has definitely gone there. And although I don't think they're going to take over, they're taking a percentage of the market away from the major roller coasters.
Well, Pete, about how many parks do you get to visit every year?
I try to visit at least 20 or 30 a year, but then that's a low number compared to the fact that there's over 2,000 parks just in the United States, and I'm sure where you live, and there's several, 3 or 4 that I can think of, plus a few water parks just in your area alone. It's hard to get to all of them. I try to tend to go to those that I enjoy and try to visit new ones that are maybe smaller parks that maybe you're not, a little off the beaten trail that you want to try. I came up with my new book, which is coming out next month, which incorporates a lot of different things, as well as the new rides, as well as some new amusement parks that made the list.
Pete, what about roller coasters? Men, women alike enjoy them, or decidedly male, decidedly female? What about any kind of gender breakdowns on who's riding these things?
Well, if you go on any line, you'll probably see about an even amount of both male and female, mostly kids. You will see kids from between the ages of 12 and 30. 30 is not kids, but that's pretty much the age group that you will see on these rides. People like to get challenged. They have a long day at work, and they want to be able to be challenged and do something fun and interesting. Well, what better way to do that than actually go to a park and do a ride that looks death-defying, even though it's pretty safe, and get that rush. When you're a pilot, you basically call it the rush that you get from doing all these different maneuvers, high G's, low G's, that type of stuff. And you'll find that mostly men and women are pretty much about even on that. If they've got excitement and they want to try something different, you'll find them on these rides, on roller coasters.
If you just joined us, yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck, as always, of Lewis at Large Radio, and in the midst of a fun segment here with our old friend Pete Trabucco. He has appeared on over 1,200 radio and TV shows, including this one, Bloomberg TV, CNN Travel Channel, many, many more. Also has a workout that we talked about in years past called America's Top Roller Coasters and Amusement Parks. He just told you that he's got a new one coming out soon. We'll tell you how to get a copy of that at the end of the show. Pete, take our Lewis at Large listeners, if you would, a little bit through, at least to the detail level that you're comfortable with. Tell us about the development of a new roller coaster and what goes into that in general, and how long does it take by the time you think about it, plan it, do a prototype, test it, all those kinds of things, from inception to the time they actually launch it. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it depends on the type of roller coaster. Like, for example, if it's a family coaster or a kiddie coaster, it's a lot shorter on the time span, maybe 6 months to a year to actually create it. And normally you'll get a smaller company to do that. But on the large-scale ones, for example, like King Ka over at Great Adventure, which is the tallest and fastest roller coaster in the United States, a ride like that, or even Mamba, the 200-foot ride, which probably took about maybe 1 to 2 years just in the making to get that ride to go. It takes a while because you have to put into consideration these rides are now costing $20 and $30 million a year. How long is it going to be to recoup that money? How many people have to ride that roller coaster? And is it direct proportional to what you're paying? And a lot of times when Six Flags or Cedar Fair operations or Busch Gardens or Universal Studios or even Disney World put together a ride, they've got to put into all the calculations as far as how much it's going to cost, what the recoup level is going to be. 90% of the time, if they put a good ride in, it works out that they make their money back in less than 2 to 3 years. So there's a lot that goes into it. Again, a lot of it is done on paper before it's actually, or in the computer, prior to actually having it go out and do that. And that's the technology. I mean, it's shortened it because way back when they were building these rides, and they didn't know what they were doing, it was the shortest period, but at the same time they had to do a lot of revamps and changes. Nowadays, down to the brake pads they use, they pretty much know what's going on and have a pretty concept of how much it's going to cost to maintenance every year or maintain every year.
Pete, who's the driving force behind the development of the new coasters? Is it the parks and the managers and those that pretty much administer these parks? They get a sense of what the audience wants, or they're private roller coaster development companies that somehow on their own develop them?
Well, you've got manufacturers that actually come up with the new ideas and new rides, whether it's a coaster in which you're sitting in a chair or a comfy seat like Medusa in California, or whether you're just dangling like Batman, or you're actually hanging over like Superman and there's nothing below you and you're actually literally flying. These are all concepts that came up with, and again, they come from ideas of the actual roller coaster enthusiasts themselves, who actually say, why don't we do a ride like that? Or why can't you do a ride like this? Or why don't you try something a little bit different? So all these rides have come out of the manufacturers having Imagineering or just basically coming up with new ideas, but then also the people that ride them actually will give their comments. And they read those comments and say, maybe we can do that. Maybe we can do a ride that's different. Like these new rides, these 4D rides, in which you're actually riding down a roller coaster, but at the same time, instead of it just going straight down, the seat goes backwards, forwards, upside down, inside out, while you're actually in a dip or in a loop or whatever. It's very, very creative, and it's really enhanced by the fact that roller coaster people, and there's a lot of us out there, love to have something new come to the market, and we'll go to any parks that have that.
Well, we can't talk to you without talking. Why don't you do this? And I know it's impossible to rank roller coasters because they're all, like you said, different themes, different concepts. But if you would, just for this particular show's purpose, give us a phenomenal roller coaster experience sort of on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and then bring it into Kansas City, the general Kansas City, Lawrence, Kansas area. What are three that you think are just really special?
Well, if you're going to go into the New York, the Northeast area, there's so many to think of. But my favorite, without a doubt, would be a roller coaster called Nitro, which is at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey. It's now a destination park. It has the most roller coasters, and it's actually the biggest park in the United States. They've got a ride there. You talk about the flight deck. Well, this one goes from 0 to 100, from 0 to 60 miles an hour down a hill in less than a couple seconds. It's just an amazing ride. 90 miles an hour, holds its speed, maintains it, and very, very smooth. And it's like you can't wait to get back on that ride. So that would be one of my favorites. Another ride also in that area would be 0 to 128 miles an hour in 3 seconds, and that would be Kinda at the same location. Now, if you go down south to Florida, there's many rides there, but one of my favorite rides is probably one of the older rides there, but you'll find the Hulk at the Universal Studios, which has a launch factor, and it's got a great queue. Great ride to go on, one of the most smoothest rides that I've actually been on from B&M. Down in Texas, Titan takes the cake over at Six Flags. I think that's over Texas. Great ride, over a 250-foot drop, amazing ride to go to. If you go, Midwest, I would go with Cedar Point, Sandusky, Ohio. Millennium Force, one of my most favorite rides. In fact, it's actually on the front cover of my other book that I've written. Again, that's a 300-foot mega roller coaster. And if you go to California, there's so many out there, but I do like rides like the Accelerator, for example, over at Knott's Berry Farm. That's a great ride, as well as Superman, which is an older ride over at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and of course, Disney's got California Screaming, another great ride. And if going back to your location again, you've got some pretty good rides just right in your neighborhood. I mentioned that Mamba is one of my favorites. In fact, it's one of the first 200-foot roller coasters to ever be built. A lot of the ones in the Northeast got the credit, but actually Mamba was one of the first ones to come on board. You've got some, the Prowler, which is a great wood coaster, also at Worlds of Fun, and those would be my list of just a short list of the thousands of rides that are out there.
So, Pete, is there if we're roller coaster aficionados, how do we research those? How do you know, for example, that a park has a new roller coaster? You're on these websites all the time, or tell us about the research you do so you know where to go.
Well, yeah, a lot of it's research. A lot of it's actually traveling itself. And the good thing about amusement parks, whether they're small or big, in order for them to do well, they have to advertise. They've got to put it somewhere. Well, whether it's in a local paper or like a lot of times what you'll find is you go to the convenience stores, and at those convenience stores you will find coupons, for the new park or for the park saying they've got new rides. There's websites you can go to. And here's something for really those people that really love amusement parks. There are roller coaster clubs. Like the American Coaster Enthusiasts, for example, which is the biggest one out there. I think they got maybe 6,000 or 7,000 members at this point. And when you enroll with one of those, they keep you updated on everything, all the trips they're taking and all the new rides that are going out. So it's pretty easy to know where the new stuff is coming because, again, I've done a lot of television, and whenever there's a new ride, whether it's in Kansas or whether it's in New York or Los Angeles, I'll get a call, and they'll be talking about it on television, about this new ride at this location and what it's like. So that's how you keep in touch, and obviously you hear from other people, hey, did you try that ride, or there's a new ride here. And I get a lot of calls from the owners of these amusement parks themselves. And say, Pete, we'd love to have you come on down and look at our roller coaster, our new ride, and I'm more than happy to do that.
I was going to say, kind of like a movie reviewer or a food critic, when they see you walk through the door, do you get the red carpet treatment?
Well, sometimes. I mean, the bigger operations, not really, but it's not about that. And I try to be nice to everyone, even if it's not a great ride. I don't tend to knock a ride or an amusement park because obviously they're trying, and if it's not the greatest ride, then I just probably won't give it the greatest review. But it wouldn't be a negative review at all.
Let me ask you something. You've been doing this a long time. You've been upside down in roller coasters and had your body jostled all kinds of ways. Are you still loving it the way you used to? Or you're starting to slow down a little bit?
No, I still love it. I mean, every day there's a new thing. Again, being an old pilot who would do loop-the-loops and Emmelmans and barrel rolls and you name it, hammerhead falls. You miss having the fun of doing those type of elements. And just seeing the world in a different perspective. And I think that's what really excites me about roller coasters. Plus, I love going to rides, to amusement parks and to see these rides because the people are all having fun. It's really hard to be in a very depressed state when people are having so much fun. And you look around and you pretty much forget your problems and enjoy. When I was in England and riding there as well as in France, where they don't really speak English, or up in Montreal, where again they'll speak French. Laughter is universal. Having fun is universal. You might be on a ride with somebody who can't speak English, but towards the end of the ride, you guys are high-fiving each other and having a grand old time. So that's one of the reasons why I like to do it, and hopefully I'll continue to do it for as long as I can.
Pete, there's on a kind of a go up a little bit higher altitude here, not just about roller coasters, but amusement parks in general. Lots of things for people to do these days. A lot of people going to the national parks, a lot of people going overseas, camping, et cetera, et cetera. Where, sort of in the entertainment dollar and the vacation and destination dollar, are America's amusement parks? Are they doing well? Are they struggling? Are they kind of maintaining? Tell us about that.
Oh, they're doing well. Several years ago, I would say probably not. I would say it would be very, very difficult. Way back when, several years ago, Six Flags it had to close several of their operations, and so did Cedar Fair. But nowadays, there seems to be a resurgence of roller coasters and thrill rides. People, even during the darkest times, you'll find will still go to a place. Whether it's just a park, it doesn't have to be roller coasters. It could be a national park. It could be the beach. It could be any place that gets them to think about other things other than their lives and the issues and problems. Disney and Universal Studios and all the others, Busch Gardens, raise their rates all the time to come into their parks. But every year, they seem to be breaking records every year because the people, really want that. It's more about being able to be transported into another place, and I think that's why there's been a resurgence, especially with the economy being up and down as it is, and things going on. People tend to want to do something that's going to take their mind off things, and some will just want to relive their childhood and go back to places they went to years before.
Well, we've got lots of generations that listen to this show. We got some younger people. We certainly have sort of middle age, so to speak, and then we have some that are a little bit older, and some are taking themselves, some are taking kids, some are taking grandkids. I'm curious as to, just in general terms, if you have not been to one of America's, let's just say a Worlds of Fun type place, a larger one like that, how is the experience different now, you think, than maybe a decade ago? People have stayed away for a while. They just thought, oh, gosh, I haven't even been in an amusement park forever. What's different about them now?
Well, the thing is, the shows have gotten really professional. You have professional actors. There are a lot more people that want to get into the industry now than then, so you'll find some great shows. Even if you don't like roller coasters, you'll come to the parks because you want to see the shows. Everyone loves the French fries and the kettle corn and all the things that are being offered at these parks. So even food-wise, they would come. But the real secret is this. Way back when they only had the wood coasters and maybe some of the older steel coasters, they were very rough. And if you went on a ride 10, 20 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, you said, I'm never getting on these rides again because they are so rough. Your back might hurt, your neck might hurt. It wasn't a pleasant experience. Today, with today's technology, these rides are, even the wood coasters that are being built, are so much smoother and so much easier on the body, but also at the same time more thrilling than they have ever been. So when you go on that ride, you experience things that you didn't experience the last time. And when that happens, you become a roller coaster person again, or a thrill ride maniac, or a coaster junkie, or whatever you want to call yourself. And that's why they do that. Plus, the parks were smart, and they decided to put smaller coasters, family coasters, because, the grandpa wants to ride every now and then with the kids as well. And so there's something for anything or everyone, even at the smaller parks, as opposed to the big ones we talked about.
Right. Well, listen, we're starting to wind down here a little bit, but share with us a little bit about the new work you got coming out.
Well, I have a new book now. The first book was called America's Top Roller Coasters and Amusement Parks, a guide for those who ride them and those who feared them. This new book is actually going to be my favorites, my favorite guide to ride, but not just for rides in the United States, but water parks in the United States, as well as the amusement parks that you will find in Europe. So those are some of the areas that that we also will be talking about.
Don't know how you do it. You go have fun for a living. I'm loving every minute of it. Pete Trabucco has been our guest, America's foremost, maybe the foremost expert in the world on amusement parks, and in particular roller coasters, and a brand new work coming soon. We'll be looking for that. Pete, how can people find out more about the work you do and about our parks?
Not a problem. You can go to www.americasrollercoasters.tateauthor.net. I have a Facebook page, both a friend and as well as a official page, Twitter. I'm on Instagram, social media, and of course you can find my book at Tate Publishing. That's Tate Publishing, and the next book will be coming out in July.
Love every minute of it. Listen, have a great summer. I know you will. Would love to have you back on again. And again, thanks so much for spending some time with us during this segment, pal.
Thank you. You have a great summer.
We will. We'll be back with more right after this on Lewis at Large.